Hello everybody, welcome back to another light novel review. Today I am talking about volume number 1 in Chirolu's light novel series, If It's For My Daughter, I'd Even Defeat a Demon Lord. Now, in this book we have an adventurer named Dale who is, well, even though he's relatively young, he's fairly well regarded and has become a fairly accomplished adventurer. One day when he's out in a forest taking care of some magical beasts on a job, he discovers a young, emaciated girl. He discovers that she seems to have been lost in this forest for some time and that her parent, or at least who he presumes to be her parent, has been killed by beasts. And so he decides to take the girl in as his own daughter, despite the fact that he discovers that she is a devil, which is a humanoid, long-living race that is most notably, known because they have horns. But with Latina, the young girl that he takes in, he discovers that one of her horns is missing, which creates a mystery because typically that only happens to criminals of the devil race. If It's For My Daughter is a slice-of-life fantasy novel. There are no isekai elements to this. It is purely just a standard fantasy-type setting. The book does not have a lot of action. In fact, it's almost non-existent in terms of, given that the title has demon lords mentioned, you would think there was obviously going to be some kind of demon lord conflict. But really, that doesn't happen. There is one very brief little battle scene in the entire novel. Instead, the novel focuses primarily on Latina herself. And each chapter is basically dedicated to a new part of Latina's journey in terms of becoming acclimatized to this new life that she has, living with Dale in this human city, in an inn which is, its primary business is the rough and tumble adventurer. So each chapter deals with a certain part of her life. So Latina making friends, Latina learning to cook. How is Latina behaved? What happens to Latina the first time that Dale has to go away on a job? We also see how this change in lifestyle is affecting Dale. Dale, who we are presented as being a relatively cold and calculating adventurer who's succeeded because of that, instead starts becoming a blubbering, fawning father over Latina, who, when he isn't working, is almost entirely obsessed and devoted to this young girl that he sees as his now daughter. It also gives us that nice little sort of slice of life thing where we see even the gruff adventurers who are patrons of the inn, how even they start becoming softened because of the presence of this cute and very intelligent young girl. In terms of conflict, there really isn't much. Probably the closest thing that we get to conflict is in one chapter where we deal with Latina coming up against a bit of racism because Latina is a devil. Aside from that, this is a very gentle, very easygoing book that is really meant to sort of pull on your heartstrings and make you fall for this cute little daughter and kind of make you wish that you had a daughter who was just as sweet and intelligent, or maybe a little sister who was just sweet or, as intelligent. It's all about playing on your emotions, and it's all about just giving you this heartfelt slice of life set in a fantasy setting. Now, we do, of course, have demon lords mentioned. We have a little bit of world building that is done. So we do know that there are dangers out there in the world, and we also know that there are some people from the devil race that actually serve the demon lords. So there is potential built into this that there could be conflict, there could be action, there could be, battles with demon lords potentially in future volumes. Again, I have no idea because I've only read volume 1. Volume 1, of course, has none of those things really. It really doesn't. Now, in terms of some criticisms of the novel, for myself, I thought there were 2 problems with this novel. The first, and again, these are my personal opinions. The first one was Dale himself. Dale's character is, to me, wildly inconsistent. We're told quite often that he was very stone and cold and he would just do his jobs and he didn't have much of a life before Latina came along. But in the novel, when it begins, and this is really not a spoiler because this is like first 2-3 pages. When Dale first encounters Latina, his first instinct is to actually cut her down, to kill her, because she's a devil. And we do find out that there's a reason for Dale to sort of have some negative feelings and be wary around devil people. But it very quickly transitions from him making that decision to adopting her and caring for her, and all of a sudden she is like the center of his life. It just seems a little too immediate. It's a little too perfect. It would have really sort of upped this novel a notch for me if there had been more development of their relationship and the building of their relationship. And the other sort of criticism that I have is actually about the writing itself. This book just screams to have a little bit of fairy tale poetry to it. I'm a huge fan of Neil Gaiman. I don't know if I've actually mentioned that to any of you light novel readers, but he is probably one of my favorite authors outside of light novels, obviously. And Gaiman really has just this real control of language that it's, when you read his stuff, it's not flowery, but there is a sort of fairy tale poetry to it. You can really sort of feel this evocative sort of sense of the mystical and this, you know, otherworldness in the writing. And this book screams for that, and it really doesn't have it. The writing is fairly blunt. It's fairly by the numbers. We're often told and not shown, and of course I've complained about that a few times in other light novels as well, that it feels that you could just write this a little differently and it would let me experience that as a reader, as opposed to just having you bluntly tell me that that's how things are. And this is that kind of book. Because it's a slice of life, because there's not a lot of action to really drive the narrative along, I really want to have it driven because of these relationships and because of experiencing these things with these characters. And it was just a little too blunt to really drag me in all that way. That said, it's not a horrible novel by any means. I mean, I read it, I enjoyed it. I am very curious about where the story goes from here, whether it stays this very gentle sort of slice of life, pull on your heartstrings, or whether it does become something far more tragic and far more violent. And I mean, definitely the potential is there. I mean, we don't know why Latina was cast out as a criminal. We don't know how any of this relates to the demon lords, and I'm only assuming it relates to the demon lords because of the title. So again, this is a series that it could go somewhere completely different. And that is what I think has me very curious about where things will go from here. So if you're looking for a sort of gentle read, a slice of life type novel, but in a fantasy setting, this is definitely going to sort of scratch that itch. But if you're looking for something that is really going to deep dive on human relationships, or, well, human devil relationships, but if it's going to show you like a lot of really intense emotions and a lot of very deep dive on the sort of relationships, it doesn't quite get there. It doesn't quite make it. But it's a gentle read. It's one of those things that if the world's getting you down and maybe you've read some really dark, sort of disturbing stuff, this one's a pretty good one to pick up after that. So those are my thoughts on volume number 1 of If It's For My Daughter, I'd Even Defeat a Demon Lord. So the next book that I am going to be reviewing will be volume number 4 of ReZero. Now, you all know that I am a big fan of this series, and I know that many of you are fans as well as being fans of the anime. I believe this one starts the longer arc that finished off the anime, so this is sort of the start of it. At least that's what I believe some of you have told me. So, again, ReZero, volume number 4 will be my next review. So if you love light novels and you're brand new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe so you can check out all of my future light novel reviews, including ReZero 4 and the next volume of If It's For My Daughter, I'd Even Defeat a Demon Lord. Thank you all for joining me in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.